She works with clients in industries ranging from financial services to healthcare to cultural institutions. She also has a passion for influencing the way people interact with technology and has a knack for breaking complex information into simple interactions. We can all give a warm welcome to Krysta Stone.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm really excited to be here today to talk with you a little bit about some real world work that I've participated in recently. And many of you are probably familiar with the Henry Ford, which is a cultural institution located in Metro Detroit. And Proficient Digital, the agency that I work with, recently started working with them, actually in 2015, on a multi-year project to create a complete digital transformation for them. So it involves lots of touch points. Today I'm just going to talk about a small slice of the work that we did for them, centering around taking information and making it the focal point of storytelling. So really creating a structure and a strategy using information to allow them to create an entire storytelling system for their institution. So some background first and foremost. I'm sure a lot of you, as I said, are familiar with the Henry Ford. If you're not from the area, you might not be familiar with it, but it is a very popular attraction in Metro Detroit. They have a museum, the Museum of American Innovation, Greenfield Village, which a lot of people tend to be most familiar with, as well as a theater and a very extensive research collection in the Benson Ford Research Center. So I included a picture here of the archival stacks at the Benson Ford Research Center because I actually began my information career in the stacks as a graduate student. We'll just call it many years ago. I processed a collection that was the personal and professional papers of an industrial designer, Mel Bolt Associates. And I spent an entire summer with paper and creating metadata, creating information about that paper. And flash forward many years in the future when I was able to engage in this project to take a lot of the information, metadata, and overall artifact collection and bring it to a new audience and really help to transform how the Henry Ford is reaching visitors and interested enthusiasts in the digital realm. So the Henry Ford claims to have 26 million artifacts, and I believe that is an accurate claim. We won't get into exactly how they count the artifacts. And they have done a tremendous job over the years of digitizing their collection. So they didn't really need our help in that realm. What they really needed help with is bringing that collection to new audiences and really using it as a focal point in creating a digital experience. So really the collection, the artifacts, are the Henry Ford. This place would not exist without this collection. And a lot of it is on display in the museum or in Greenfield Village, but a lot of it is not. And a lot of the items that aren't on display are really fascinating, really interesting. So one of the things that we started with in terms of our information strategy was to explore how we could design a digital artifact. So the artifacts already exist in the collection, there's metadata about them. How can we create an engaging digital experience for people to experience the artifacts and to get really interested in exploring further? So a lot of the inspiration that we took was from collectibles or trading cards. So we have a picture here of the shelf at Target that has a lot of trading cards and collectible items. We took inspiration from that, as well as other things we were seeing in the museum or in other museums. And we just began to sketch and create wireframes, things you're very familiar with, I'm sure, to start to get to a concept for the digital artifact. So once we did that, we also had to look at all of the information inputs. So we can't create a strategy for information unless you are familiar with the information inputs that you have. So we were looking at the metadata available about artifacts. So they've been cataloged, digitized. There's lots of media formats about them. And we were also looking at the museum or the village itself. So looking at how experiences have already been designed in physical spaces really can inform how you might want to treat information when you're extending it out digitally. So we looked at the museum, and then of course we had in mind user personas, consumer personas, so thinking about the types of people that might be interested in this collection. And it really caused our team to extend our thinking a lot about who might want to engage with this. So it's not necessarily just families that take their children to Greenfield Village, but there's enthusiasts who are very interested in automobiles, for example, researchers, people who live far away from Greenfield Village and the museum and may never visit there. We also engaged in some prototyping exploration around this concept of a physical artifact card. So as I said, we took some inspiration from trading cards, collectibles, and we started to play out how you could create an extended experience from both digital to physical with physical cards. So this was a big part of our design process as well, thinking about what information would be on a two-sided card versus what could be in a digital experience of an artifact that could be many more than two sides. You know, it could have a lot of dimension to it. So that was sort of our bottom-up approach to information strategy and design. We were thinking about concepts, about how people would interact with something digitally or physically, but in terms of fully fleshing out the information strategy, we really had to take this top-down approach, and that started with looking at lots and lots of data about artifacts. So the images that are on this slide represent screenshots from a cataloging system that the Henry Ford uses for artifacts. And right here you see like 4 screenshots. This was actually a single artifact that had, I think it was something like 50 or 60 screens of information. So when you multiply that by the number of artifacts, 60,000 some digitized artifacts that we had to take into consideration, we were really looking for commonalities. So what are some of the common fields that an artifact might have data? Or what are some of the fields that might cause a user to want to explore further? So there are things like the creator of the artifact, or the place it was created, or the year it was created. Those are the types of metadata that might cause someone to want to go further. Well, let me see other things that were created in this year or by this company. So we had to take that, first the universe of metadata, and then we started to think about, well, if we weren't constrained by space, what are the most important things that we want to show users about artifacts? So this image represents the full artifact detail page. So we took a huge amount of data, started to cull it down, and we really prioritized media. So that's another thing that someone who can't visit the institution itself might be really interested in. They have lots of imagery. Some of the artifacts have 360 experiences where you can turn the artifact around and look inside and outside of it. So this is part of our process of taking all of that information, pulling it into a smaller format. And then lastly, we landed on this idea of a digital artifact card. So this was boiling that metadata down into the very most essential elements so that a user could explore it quickly, maybe see the key points about creation day, creator, some of the keywords, subject terms, things like that, and really also explore that metadata. So because the artifact in the digital sense doesn't just have, you know, like a physical trading card, 2 sides, we really tried to embed a lot of content in this card. And the reason that we were doing that is that this card really became the atomic level of storytelling, which I'm going to get into a little bit more now. So it wasn't just that we were creating a format or a template to take data, 60,000 artifacts worth of data, and have it be easily viewable or reproducible in this card format, that we wanted to create an entire system around this. So this card really became what we kind of refer to as a Trojan horse for the Henry Ford. You know, any artifact in their collection that becomes digitized can fit into this format. So there's no work that they need to do on their part to create this. It's something that, using data design and lots of code that I probably couldn't explain to you, this can happen across their entire collection and continue to do that. And we really wanted these cards to become something that people would potentially embed or share far outside of the Henry Ford's digital properties themselves. So a journalist who's maybe writing about Elon Musk or car technology could easily embed artifact cards about the history of automotive engineering and design in something that they're writing far outside of the property. This is just the back of the card. So as I mentioned, the artifact card is really this atomic level of storytelling. And what I mean by that is one of the goals of our overall digital transformation project was to help the Henry Ford become more of a publisher of information and not just a repository. So we helped them to use the artifact card as a focal point for creating data-driven stories. We have a couple different formats of stories and content templates that they can use to do that. Some of them are more long-form stories, so there's many of them on the website today, but they allow for long-form telling of maybe how Henry Ford created the quadricycle cycle and embed all the various artifact cards that relate to that in that story. And then there's also much shorter content formats that they're able to produce using artifact cards. So one of them is a video series where curators make surprising connections between 3 artifacts. So because the curation staff and the subject matter experts at the Henry Ford are so knowledgeable about this collection, they really are the best people to speak about how these things maybe come together in surprising ways. So there's a video series. I have a slide showing that in a little bit. But they speak about artifacts, and then the video sort of resolves showing the 3 artifact cards so that the user can click through and explore the collection on their own. So this really involved a big cultural and mindset shift for the Henry Ford. As I said, they've done a phenomenal job of not only preserving and continuing to extend the life and reach of this amazing collection that they have. But in this project and in this digital transformation, we really are asking them to think more like a publisher. So they need to be able to quickly create content. And now that they have this artifact card system and different ways to use the information strategy about artifacts, they can do that a little more quickly. But the information strategy really prompted them to look at changing their structure as well. So adding staff so that they can quickly produce content, looking at how they might use their curators more in public-facing ways to create these videos and this series of content around artifacts. So Connect 3, this is the concept that I just mentioned, using artifacts to tell a story, short video stories about how 3 separate artifacts may have interesting or surprising connections that the public might not immediately think of. And as I mentioned, the video resolves at the end with the 3 cards so the user can click right through. Another big part of this information strategy is really to get people more engaged with the collection. So to have them see a short video or read a short story and think, wow, I had no idea that the Henry Ford has an extensive toy collection. Maybe I'll go just look at a few items or see what else is in the collection. So user engagement and exploration is also a big part of this strategy and how we're utilizing information. So it's not just about the Henry Ford telling the public how things are related or what's interesting. It's about allowing users to take the information that's available and create their own stories. So we've built in various functions within both the artifact card and the overall digital experience to allow users to create their own connections between artifacts, to create sets of artifacts that they can then share or use in their own content that they may be writing, a blog or article, something like that. So the last slide that I have is really about kind of tying back to my experience with the Henry Ford, so being an archive student many years ago and working in the collection, to today when I've worked with them again on this really interesting project to bring some of these artifacts to life. So I've just collected a few of my favorite artifacts from the 60,000 that are available. You can see just from this the broad range of things that they have in their collection. Everything from my favorite radio that I had when I was a teenager to a radio that was designed by the industrial designer whose papers I processed when I worked there. So I think it's a really interesting way for people to get involved with looking at information. It's not just about data, but it's about building an experience that people might want to not only share, but go out, visit the attraction itself, or use the content in their own format. That's it.